Tom Henderson laughed out loud when the old farmer said it. You want what? The 1962 Farmall 560 that's been sitting out back for 8 months? Charlie, that tractor's a piece of junk. Why would you want that when I've got brand new John Deere 4050 tractors on the lot? It was Tuesday morning, April 7th, 1987. Henderson's John Deere dealership in Ames, Iowa. Tom had owned the place for 12 years, sold hundreds of tractors, knew every farmer in 3 counties. Charlie Morrison stood at the parts counter wearing faded Carhartt overalls with grease stains, muddy boots, a worn International Harvester cap from the 1970s. He was 61 years old, farmed 280 acres outside Nevada, Iowa, drove a 1976 Ford F-150 with rust eating through the fenders and 218,000 miles on it. I want the Farmall, Charlie repeated quietly. The 560 out back, how much? Tom couldn't stop smiling. This was too perfect. Charlie, that tractor's 25 years old. It's got 8,000 hours on it, needs transmission work, hydraulics are shot, paint's faded, tires are half worn. It's worth maybe 4,000 as scrap. Maybe. I'll give you 6,000 cash for it. Tom's smile faded slightly. 6,000? Cash? Yes, today. I'll bring the money this afternoon. Tom studied Charlie's face. The old farmer was serious. Charlie, why do you want a beat-up 25-year-old Farmall when you could finance a new 4050? Payment would only be about $400 a month. You'd have modern equipment, warranty, parts support. I don't want new. I want that Farmall. But why? That tractor's ancient technology. No cab, no air conditioning, manual transmission. It's like buying a Model T when you could have a Cadillac. Charlie's weathered face showed no emotion. The Farmall's what I want. 6,000 cash. You selling or not? Tom thought about it. The Farmall had been sitting on his back lot since August 1986. He'd taken it as a trade-in from a farmer upgrading to newer equipment. Tom had listed it for 8,000, got no serious offers. It just sat there taking up space. 6,000 cash was decent money for a tractor Tom figured was worth 4 at best. Tell you what, Charlie. You bring me 6,000 cash this afternoon, the Farmall's yours. But I'm telling you right now, you're making a mistake. That tractor's gonna cost you more in repairs than it's worth. I'll take my chances. Charlie left. Tom watched through the showroom window as the old farmer climbed into his rusty truck and drove away. Tom turned to his sales manager, Kevin. Can you believe that? Guy wants to spend 6,000 on a 25-year-old Farmall instead of getting a nice new 4050 on payments. Some farmers never learn. Kevin shook his head. Charlie Morrison's always been strange. Farms the same 280 acres his dad farmed, never expanded. Drives that old truck. Wears the same overalls for 10 years. Probably figures the old Farmall matches his style. Tom laughed. Exactly. Old farmer, old truck, old tractor. At least he's consistent. That afternoon at 2:15, Charlie returned. Walked into the dealership carrying a paper grocery bag. Tom met him at the counter. Charlie, you actually bring the money? I did. Charlie set the bag on the counter, opened it. Inside were stacks of $20 bills, lots of them. Tom blinked. That's 6,000 in cash? Count it. Tom did. Took him 10 minutes. Exactly $6,000 in 20s, 50s, and hundreds. All old bills, worn from use. The kind of cash someone keeps in a safe for years. Charlie, where'd you get $6,000 cash? Saved it. Had it in my safe at home. You keep $6,000 in cash at your house? I keep more than that. But 6 is what the tractor costs. Tom was surprised but tried not to show it. All right then. Let me get the title and we'll sign papers. While Tom prepared the paperwork, Charlie stood quietly, hands in his overall pockets, looking at the shiny new tractors in the showroom. Tom noticed Charlie showed no interest in them, didn't ask about features or prices, just stood there waiting. They signed the papers. Tom handed Charlie the title and keys. She's all yours. Sitting out back by the fence. You hauling it today? Tomorrow. I'll bring my trailer. Charlie, seriously. Why that old Farmall? What are you gonna do with it? Charlie met Tom's eyes. Gonna farm with it. You already got tractors. I've seen you running a 1973 International 1056. That's way better than this Farmall. The 1056 is good, but I wanted the Farmall too. Why? Charlie smiled slightly. You'll see. He left. Tom told the story to everyone who came in that week. Old Charlie Morrison bought that beat-up Farmall for $6,000 cash, carried it in a grocery bag. Can you believe it? Guys farming with equipment from the Kennedy administration. The other dealers and salesmen laughed. That's Charlie. Too cheap to buy new. Probably thinks he's saving money running old iron. But Tom couldn't shake one detail that bothered him. Charlie had said he kept more than $6,000 in cash at home. How much more? And how does a farmer running 280 acres accumulate that kind of cash? Tom had always assumed Charlie was poor. The old truck, the worn overalls, the small operation, all signs of someone barely getting by. But $6,000 in cash from a home safe suggested otherwise. Over the next 2 weeks, Tom heard things about Charlie that made him reconsider his assumptions. First story came from Carl Jensen, who owned the implement shop in Nevada. Carl mentioned that Charlie had bought a complete rebuild kit for the Farmall. Paid cash, $470, didn't even blink. Second story came from the tire shop. Charlie bought 4 new rear tires for the Farmall. Titan 16.938s, $840, paid cash on the spot. Third story came from the paint supplier. Charlie ordered 50 gallons of Harvester Red implement paint plus primer. $260, cash. Tom did math. Charlie had spent over $8,000 on a tractor Tom sold him for $6,000. That was $14,000 total invested in a 25-year-old machine. Something didn't add up. Then in early May, Tom drove past Charlie's farm heading to a service call. Saw something that stopped him cold. The Farmall was parked in Charlie's machine shed, completely restored. Not just repaired, restored. The tractor looked brand new, perfect Harvester Red paint, new tires, chrome exhaust stack gleaming, seat recovered, sheet metal straightened, every bolt and fitting replaced or cleaned. Tom pulled into Charlie's driveway, got out, walked to the shed. The Farmall was stunning, looked better than it had rolling off the assembly line in 1962. Tom had seen professional restorations at farm shows. This matched those, maybe exceeded them. Charlie emerged from his barn wearing the same stained overalls. Afternoon, Tom. Charlie, that Farmall, you restored it? I did. How? This is professional level work. I've been restoring tractors for 30 years. Know how to do it right? Tom walked around the tractor slowly. Every detail was perfect. This must have taken hundreds of hours. About 400. Did it evenings and weekends over 6 weeks? Why? Why put this much effort into a 25-year-old tractor? Charlie smiled. Come with me. I'll show you something. They walked to Charlie's barn. Inside were 5 more tractors. All vintage International Harvesters. All perfectly restored. A 1951 Farmall H Cherry Red. Looked new. A 1956 Farmall 450. Flawless. A 1960 Farmall 560. Identical to the one Charlie just bought but restored years earlier. A 1965 International 706. Immaculate. A 1970 International 1056. Perfect condition. Tom stared. You've restored all these? Over 30 years. I buy worn-out tractors cheap. Restore them perfectly. Some I keep, some I sell. You sell them? For how much? Depends. The Farmall H I sold last year brought $18,000 at auction. The 450 brought $22,000. The 706 I'll sell this fall. Should bring $25,000 to $30,000. Tom's jaw dropped. You sold a 1951 Farmall H for $18,000? Yep. Bought it in 1982 for $1,200. Spent about $3,000 in parts and materials. Put in 300 hours of labor. Sold it for $18,000. Netted about $13,000 profit after expenses. And you've been doing this for 30 years? Since 1957. I was 21. Bought my first worn-out Farmall for $200. Restored it. Sold it for $900. Made $700 profit. I was hooked. Tom did rapid math. How many tractors have you restored? 63 total. Sold 48. Kept 15 over the years. Average profit on the ones I sold was about 8,000 per tractor. Some more, some less. But 48 tractors times 8,000 average. Tom finished the calculation. That's $384,000 profit. Over 30 years. About $12,800 per year average. Tax-free because it's hobby income and I never reported it. Tom was stunned. You've made almost $400,000 restoring tractors? Little more, actually. Some of the recent ones brought higher prices. Probably closer to $430,000 total. Where's all that money? Charlie led Tom back to the house, into a small office, opened a file cabinet, pulled out bank statements, 3 different accounts. Total balance, $618,000. Tom couldn't speak. Charlie explained calmly. The tractor restoration money is about $430,000. My farming income over 40 years added another $320,000 in savings. I live cheap. House is paid for. Truck runs fine. Don't need much. So I save almost everything. Been doing it since 1963. You have over $600,000 in the bank? Plus about $140,000 in cash in my safe. And the farm is worth about $450,000. And I've got about $80,000 in equipment. Total net worth is about $1,300,000. Tom felt like he'd been punched. You're a millionaire? On paper. But I don't think about it much. I just do what I enjoy. Farm, restore tractors, save money, live simple. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? Why would I? It's nobody's business. I don't need people knowing my finances. Tom thought about all the times he'd dismissed Charlie as a poor old farmer. All the jokes about the rusty truck and worn overalls. All the assumptions about Charlie barely getting by on 280 acres. Every assumption had been wrong. Charlie, I owe you an apology. I laughed at you for buying that old Farmall. Called you crazy for not buying new equipment. I assumed you couldn't afford better. I was completely wrong. Charlie shrugged. Most people assume that. I let them. Makes life easier. But why? Why let people think you're poor when you're worth over $1 million? Because it keeps me out of trouble. Nobody asks me for money. Nobody tries to sell me things I don't need. Nobody treats me different. I'm just old Charlie with the rusty truck. That's fine with me. Tom sat down heavily on Charlie's porch step. His entire view of the world was shifting. All these years, Tom said slowly, I've been pushing farmers to buy new equipment. Finance it. Upgrade constantly. I thought that was success. But you've been doing the opposite. Buying old equipment, restoring it, saving money, and you're worth more than most farmers I know who operate 3,000 acres. Success isn't about size, Charlie said. It's about what you keep. I've seen farmers with 5,000 acres go bankrupt. Seen farmers with 200 acres retire millionaires. The difference is debt and discipline. How much debt do you carry? None. Haven't owed money since 1979 when I paid off the farm. No mortgage, no equipment loans, no credit cards. If I can't pay cash, I don't buy it. That Farmall I sold you, why'd you really want it? Charlie smiled. Because it's the last year of the 560 series. I've been looking for a good 1962 for 8 years. When you took that one in trade, I knew it was my chance. It'll be my next restoration. When I'm done, it'll be worth $20,000 to $25,000. I'll probably keep it though. It'll complete my collection. Tom shook his head. I sold you a tractor for $6,000 that you'll turn into something worth $25,000. You sold me a worn-out tractor for fair market value. I'll add the value through my labor. That's how it works. Tom drove back to his dealership in silence. His mind was reeling. He'd been in the tractor business for 23 years. Thought he understood farming and farmers. Thought he knew what success looked like. Charlie Morrison had just taught him he knew nothing. That evening, Tom told his wife about Charlie. Honey, I met a millionaire today. He farms 280 acres, drives a rusty truck, and wears overalls with holes in them. And he's smarter than every businessman I know. His wife laughed. You're serious? Completely. And he made most of his money doing something nobody knew about. He's been restoring old tractors for 30 years and selling them for huge profits. Made over $400,000 as a hobby. Why didn't anyone know? Because Charlie's invisible. He looks poor, acts humble, keeps to himself. Nobody pays attention to him. And that's exactly how he wants it. Tom couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about all the farmers he'd sold equipment to over the years. How many were actually struggling to make payments? How many had he encouraged to take on debt they couldn't handle? How many had he pushed toward bigger operations when smaller might have been smarter? He thought about his own finances. Tom made good money as a dealer, grossed about $80,000 per year. But he spent $75,000 on lifestyle, nice house, new cars, vacations, country club. He saved maybe $5,000 a year. Charlie grossed maybe $35,000 per year farming, plus $12,000 from tractor restoration. $47,000 total, but lived on $12,000. Saved $35,000 per year. Every year, for decades. Tom made more. Charlie saved more. Charlie was worth $1.3 million. Tom was worth maybe $200,000, including home equity. Who was really successful? The next morning, Tom called Charlie. "Can I come talk to you? I have questions." Charlie agreed. Tom drove to the farm. They sat on Charlie's porch drinking coffee. "Charlie, teach me. How do you do it? How do you live so cheap and save so much?" Charlie thought for a moment. "It's not complicated. I own everything outright. No payments means no pressure. I fix what breaks instead of replacing it. I buy quality used instead of new. I don't care what people think of my truck or clothes. And I only spend money on things that matter." "What matters?" "Good food, reliable equipment, tools for my hobby. Everything else is just noise." "But don't you want nice things? A new truck? Better house?" "Why? My truck runs. My house is comfortable. New doesn't make me happier, it just costs more." Tom was absorbing this. "What about farming? You only have 280. Don't you want to expand?" "No. 280 is enough to make a good living. More land means more debt, more equipment, more stress. I've watched neighbors expand to 2,000 acres and lose everything. I stayed small and kept everything. Do you ever regret not growing bigger?" "Never. I've slept well every night for 40 years. No debt collectors calling. No worries about making payments. No stress. That's worth more than size." Tom asked the big question. "If you could go back to 1963 when you started farming, what would you tell yourself?" Charlie answered immediately. "I'd tell myself exactly what I figured out early. Buy used. Fix everything yourself. Never borrow money. Save aggressively. Ignore what everyone else is doing. And find a profitable hobby." The tractor restoration was the hobby. Best decision I ever made. It made me money and kept me sharp. Learned mechanical skills that saved thousands in repair bills, and built something valuable nobody else saw. Tom drove back to his dealership with a completely different mindset. For 23 years, he'd measured success by sales volume and new equipment. Charlie had just shown him that real success was invisible. It was bank accounts nobody saw. It was skills nobody knew about. It was freedom from debt and stress. That week, Tom did something he'd never done before. When a young farmer came in wanting to finance a brand new tractor, Tom talked him out of it. "You don't need new. Let me show you something better." Tom took the farmer to a local auction, helped him buy a good used tractor for 1/3 the price of new, showed him how to do basic maintenance, encouraged him to save the difference. The farmer was confused. "You're a dealer. Why aren't you selling me new?" "Because I'm tired of watching farmers go broke buying equipment they can't afford. You can succeed without debt. Someone just taught me that." Over the next 6 months, Tom's approach changed dramatically. He still sold new equipment to farmers who could genuinely afford it, but he stopped pushing credit on farmers who were better off buying used. His sales volume dropped 15%. His income dropped $12,000 that first year. But something else happened. Farmers started trusting him. Word spread that Henderson's John Deere would give honest advice instead of just pushing sales. By 1989, Tom's dealership had the highest customer loyalty in the region. Sales recovered and then exceeded previous levels. Farmers who'd bought used came back later and bought new when they could actually afford it. And Tom started saving money, cut his lifestyle expenses, stopped trying to look successful, started being successful. By 1995, Tom had saved $230,000, more than he'd saved in the previous 20 years combined. He called Charlie. "I wanted to thank you. You changed how I think about everything." Charlie laughed. I just bought a tractor from you. You figured out the rest yourself. That Farmall you bought, is it finished? Finished it in 1988. Won Best of Show at the Iowa State Fair. Got offers up to $28,000. Turned them all down. It's the centerpiece of my collection. You going to keep restoring tractors? Long as I can. Just bought a 1947 Farmall M that needs everything. Paid $800. When I'm done, it'll be worth $20,000. I'm 71 now. Figure I've got maybe 10 more restorations in me. Then what? Then I'll give the collection to a museum, or auction them off and give the money to young farmers who need a start. Haven't decided yet, but the money's not the point anymore. It's just nice to know it's there. Tom understood. The money bought you freedom. Exactly. Freedom to farm how I want. Freedom to spend time on my hobby. Freedom to say no to things I don't need. That's real wealth. They talked for another hour. Charlie shared details about specific restorations, showed Tom his workshop where he did the mechanical work, explained his painting process, demonstrated how he sourced hard-to-find parts. Tom realized Charlie had built a complete business, profitable, enjoyable, respected in restoration circles, that existed completely under the radar. No advertising, no storefront, just word of mouth among collectors and auction goers. Charlie, you could have made millions if you'd scaled this up. Hired workers, opened a proper restoration shop. Charlie shook his head. Then it would have been work. This way it stayed fun. I restored tractors because I loved it, not because I had to. That's the difference between a job and a hobby that pays. Tom left that day with a notebook full of insights. Not just about tractors or farming, but about life and success and what actually matters. He wrote down Charlie's key lessons. 1. Appearance is meaningless. The richest people often look the poorest. 2. Debt is slavery. Freedom comes from owning, not owing. 3. Size doesn't equal success. Profitability per acre beats total acres. 4. Skills are wealth. Learning to fix things yourself saves fortunes. 5. Patience builds wealth. Quick growth often leads to quick collapse. 6. Hobbies can be profitable. Do what you love and monetize it quietly. 7. Privacy protects wealth. Don't advertise your success. 8. Living below your means is a superpower. Save the difference. 9. New isn't better. Quality used beats cheap new. 10. Freedom is the goal. Money is just the tool. Tom kept that notebook for the rest of his career. Referred to it whenever he faced a big decision. Those lessons from Charlie Morrison, the poor farmer who bought an old Farmall and turned out to be a millionaire, became Tom's operating manual. In 2003, Tom sold his dealership and retired at 58. He'd accumulated $960,000 in savings and investments. Not as much as Charlie, but far more than he'd have had without Charlie's influence. Charlie Morrison farmed until 2005. Then at 79, he sold his farm for $675,000 and auctioned his tractor collection. The collection, 15 perfectly restored vintage International Harvesters, brought $412,000 at auction. The 1962 Farmall 560 that Tom had sold him for $6,000 in 1987? It sold for $32,000. Charlie's total net worth at retirement, $2.1 million. Built farming 280 acres and restoring tractors as a hobby. Never borrowed a penny, never advertised his wealth. Just quietly accumulated it over 50 years. He donated half to a scholarship fund for young farmers, kept the other half to live on. Died peacefully in 2012 at 86, leaving the remaining money to his church and community programs. Tom attended Charlie's funeral. 300 people came. Half were farmers Charlie had quietly helped over the years. The other half were tractor restoration enthusiasts who knew Charlie as a legend in the hobby. The preacher told a story Tom had never heard. In the 1990s, Charlie had given interest-free loans to 6 young farmers who couldn't get bank financing. All 6 succeeded. All 6 paid Charlie back. And none knew Charlie had helped others the same way. Charlie Morrison, the preacher said, was the richest poor man I ever knew. He had millions but lived like he had thousands. He could have bought anything but wanted nothing. He helped everyone but told no one. That's the life we should all aspire to. Tom realized Charlie had taught him the ultimate lesson. True wealth isn't what you have. It's what you don't need. The farmer who wanted the old Farmall taught the dealer everything about success. The dealer who laughed learned to respect invisible wealth. The tractor that seemed like junk became the teacher. And somewhere in Iowa, young farmers are still finding restored international harvesters at auctions, never knowing the millionaire in overalls who created them, one patient restoration at a time. That's Charlie Morrison's legacy. Not the money, the lessons. The proof that you can build wealth doing what you love, living simply and keeping it all quiet. The dealer learned. The farmer taught. The old Farmall was never junk. It was a $25,000 masterpiece waiting to be revealed. Sometimes the best investments look like mistakes. Sometimes the wisest people look like fools. Sometimes the richest farmers drive the rustiest trucks. Tom Henderson learned that in April 1987. Took him 6 months to understand it. Took him a lifetime to appreciate it fully. The farmer wanted the old Farmall. The dealer laughed. Then saw the truth and changed everything. That's the story. That's the lesson. That's what happens when you stop judging by appearance and start seeing real value. Charlie Morrison. 280 acres, rusty truck, worn overalls, $2.1 million, and the wisdom to know that none of it mattered except the freedom it bought. The dealer finally understood. The old Farmall wasn't the point. The lesson was, and it was worth more than any new tractor ever sold. The restoration years. How Charlie built his fortune. To understand Charlie Morrison's success, you need to understand his method. Between 1957 and 2005, Charlie restored 63 tractors. Each restoration followed the same meticulous process. Take the 1962 Farmall 560 that Tom sold him in April 1987. Here's exactly how Charlie turned a $6,000 worn-out tractor into a $32,000 masterpiece. Week 1. Complete disassembly. Charlie started by photographing every angle of the tractor. Took over 200 photos to document original configuration. Then he began disassembly. Every bolt, nut, washer went into labeled coffee cans. Front axle bolts. Steering column hardware. Hydraulic pump mounting. Charlie had 400 coffee cans by the time he finished. The engine came out first. Charlie used a homemade hoist in his barn, built from scrap steel, and a 2-ton chain fall bought at auction for $40. Engine weighed 850 pounds. Took Charlie 4 hours working alone to extract it safely. Transmission came next. Then hydraulic system. Then sheet metal panels. Then wheels and tires. Then electrical system. By end of week 1, the Farmall was completely disassembled. Parts organized in his barn. Frame sitting bare on jack stands. Week 2. Cleaning and assessment. Every part got cleaned. Charlie used 3 methods depending on the component. Small parts went into a homemade tumbler. A 55-gallon drum on a motor-driven shaft filled with walnut shells. Tumbled for 6 hours. Came out looking new. Medium parts got wire brushed and degreased. Charlie spent 8 hours with a wire wheel on his bench grinder, cleaning rust and old paint off every piece of sheet metal. Large parts, frame, engine block, transmission case, got sandblasted. Charlie borrowed a sandblaster from his neighbor in exchange for helping with harvest. Spent 2 full days sandblasting every major component down to bare metal. After cleaning, Charlie assessed what needed replacing versus rebuilding. Made a detailed list. Engine. Needed complete rebuild. Pistons, rings, bearings, valves, gaskets. Transmission. Needed new clutch, 3 gears, all seals. Hydraulics. Needed pump rebuild, new lines, new cylinders. Sheet metal. Needed 3 panels replaced. Hood had crack, 1 fender had rust through. Electrical. Needed complete rewiring. Tires. All 4 needed replacement. Total parts cost estimated. $4,200. Weeks 3 through 6. Parts acquisition. Charlie never bought parts retail. That was for amateurs. He had sources accumulated over 30 years. Engine rebuild kit. Ordered from Tennessee Tractor Parts. They specialized in international harvester. Charlie had account there since 1964. Got commercial pricing. Kit cost $680 instead of $900 retail. Transmission parts. Bought from salvage yard in Illinois. Guy named Ralph specialized in Farmall transmissions. Had everything Charlie needed. $340. Hydraulic components. Another salvage specialist in Wisconsin. $260. Sheet metal. Charlie found a parts tractor at auction. 1960 Farmall 560 with good tin, but blown engine. Bought whole tractor for $900. Used hood and fender. Sold remaining parts for $600. Net cost. $300 for the sheet metal he needed. Wiring. Made his own harness. Bought wire by the spool, connectors in bulk. Cost $120 versus $400 for pre-made harness. Tires. New Titans from Farm Store. On sale. $840. Paint and supplies. $260. Total actual parts cost. $3,790. Charlie saved $410 through smart sourcing. Weeks 7 through 12. Engine rebuild. Charlie had rebuilt probably 200 engines over 40 years. Could do it blindfolded. Engine block went to machine shop for bore and hone. Cost $220. Charlie picked it up, brought it home, did rest himself. Installing pistons and rings. 1 full day. Charlie measured ring gaps precisely. 0.015 inches. Perfect compression. Installing bearings. Half day. Main bearings, rod bearings, all to factory specs. Valves. Ground valve faces on his valve grinder. Bought used in 1971 for $200. Saved thousands over the years. Lapped each valve by hand. Perfect seal. Assembly. 2 days. Every bolt torqued to specification. Every clearance checked 3 times. The rebuilt engine looked factory new when finished. Would run another 20,000 hours easily. Weeks. 13 through 16. Transmission, hydraulics, chassis. Transmission rebuild took 3 days. Charlie had rebuilt this exact model 40 times. Knew every gear, shaft, bearing. Hydraulic rebuild took 2 days. New pump, new lines, new cylinders. System would lift 5,000 pounds when finished. While components were out, Charlie sandblasted and painted the frame. 3 coats of implement primer. 2 coats of Harvester Red. Frame looked better than new. Weeks 17 through 20. Paint and sheet metal. This is where Charlie's artistry showed. Anyone can bolt parts together. Few people can paint like Charlie did. Sheet metal prep. Every panel sanded smooth. Every dent worked out. Every imperfection filled with body filler and shaped perfectly. This took 2 full weeks. Primer. 3 coats of implement primer. Sanded between coats. Surface like glass. Paint. Charlie used single-stage Harvester Red implement enamel. Mixed it himself to exact 1962 formula. Applied with professional HVLP spray gun. Bought used in 1979 for $300. 5 coats. Wet sanded between each coat. Final coat color sanded and buffed. The finish was mirror smooth. Better than factory. Decals. Charlie ordered correct 1962 Farmall decals from restoration supplier. Applied them precisely. Sealed with clear coat. Weeks 21 through 24. Reassembly and finishing assembly was reverse of disassembly. Engine back in. Transmission mounted. Hydraulics installed. Sheet metal fitted. Everything torqued to spec. New seat recovered in correct material. Chrome exhaust stack polished. Every bolt head painted if it was supposed to be painted. Left bare if it was supposed to be bare. Charlie even painted the correct chalk marks on the engine, factory quality control marks from 1962. Most restorers missed these details. Charlie didn't. Final details. Battery, new interstate, $85. Fluids, correct weight oils throughout, $40. Grease, greased every Zerk fitting, all 72 of them. After 24 weeks and approximately 400 hours of labor, the 1962 Farmall 560 was finished. Total investment. $6,000 purchase price, plus $3,790 parts plus 400 hours labor. If Charlie valued his labor at $15 per hour, total cost was $15,790. At auction in 2005, it sold for $32,000. Net profit. $16,210. That was typical. Charlie averaged about $14,000 profit per restoration after accounting for labor. 63 tractors over 48 years. Average $14,000 profit per tractor. Total, $882,000. But Charlie had said $430,000. Why the difference? Because Charlie didn't value his labor. He did it for enjoyment. To him, the 400 hours spent restoring tractors wasn't work. It was entertainment. Better than television. More satisfying than golf. Cheaper than most hobbies. If you don't count labor, Charlie's actual profit was $430,000. If you count labor at commercial rates, profit was $882,000. Either way, it was a fortune made from a hobby. The dealer's transformation. Tom Henderson's change wasn't instant, it was gradual, but it was complete. In 1987, Tom's sales approach was pure volume. Sell as many tractors as possible, push financing, maximize monthly payments. More sales meant more commission. After meeting Charlie, Tom questioned everything. First change. Started asking different questions. Instead of, "What can I sell you?" Tom asked, "What do you actually need?" Second change. Stopped pushing new equipment to farmers who couldn't afford it. If a customer needed a tractor but was financially stretched, Tom recommended good used options instead. Third change. Started teaching farmers about total cost of ownership. A $40,000 new tractor financed at 12% for 7 years cost $58,000 total. A $15,000 used tractor paid in cash cost $15,000. The savings, $43,000, could buy a lot of security. These changes hurt Tom's business initially. His sales volume dropped from 42 new tractors in 1986 to 31 in 1988. His income dropped from $82,000 to $68,000. Tom's sales manager Kevin complained, "You're leaving money on the table. That farmer wanted to finance. Why'd you talk him into used?" "Because the financing would have buried him. I've watched too many farmers lose everything. Not doing it anymore." Kevin quit in disgust. Went to work for a competitor who still pushed aggressive sales. Tom hired a replacement who understood the new philosophy. Young guy named Mike who'd grown up on a farm. Seen his dad struggle with equipment debt. Got it immediately. By 1990, word had spread. Tom Henderson at the John Deere dealer actually looks out for farmers. Won't sell you stuff you don't need. That reputation became Tom's greatest asset. Farmers drove past 3 other dealers to buy from Tom, because they trusted him. By 1992, Tom's sales had rebounded to 48 tractors annually. But these were sales to farmers who could actually afford them. Default rates dropped to near zero. Repeat customers increased. Tom's income recovered to $92,000 by 1994. And he was sleeping better at night. But the biggest change was personal. Tom started living differently. In 1986, Tom and his wife lived in a 4-bedroom house worth $180,000, drove a new Buick and a new Oldsmobile, belonged to the country club, took expensive vacations. After Charlie's influence, Tom reassessed. In 1990, they sold the big house, bought a smaller 3-bedroom for $98,000. Banked the difference. Tom kept his Buick until it hit 200,000 miles in 1996. Then bought a 3-year-old Chevy for $12,000 instead of a new one for $28,000. Quit the country club, saved $4,000 annually, took cheaper vacations, camping instead of resorts. Saved another $6,000 annually. Between 1988 and 2003, Tom saved an additional $740,000 by living below his means. Combined with what he already had, Tom retired with $960,000. Not bad for a John Deere dealer who'd started with nothing, and Tom credited all of it to Charlie Morrison. The day Charlie bought that old Farmall changed my life. Taught me that looking successful and being successful are completely different things. The farmers. Charlie helped the 6 young farmers Charlie helped with interest-free loans in the 1990s each have their own stories. Stories nobody knew until Charlie's funeral. Farmer 1. Brad Mitchell. Brad was 24 in 1993. Wanted to start farming but had no money. His dad had lost their farm in the 1980s crisis. Brad had $6,000 saved from working construction. He needed a tractor. Went to every bank. All said no. No collateral. No track record. Too risky. Brad mentioned his situation to Charlie at the feed mill. Charlie listened. Said, "Come by the farm tomorrow." Brad came. Charlie walked him to the barn. showed him a restored 1956 Farmall 450. This tractor's worth $20,000. I'll sell it to you for $12,000. You can pay me back whenever you're able. No interest, no deadline, just pay when you can. Brad was shocked. Why would you do that? Because everybody needs a start, and banks don't help young farmers anymore. I do. Brad farmed with that Farmall for 8 years, made payments to Charlie whenever he had extra cash. 200 here, 500 there. Took him 6 years, but he paid back every penny. By 2001, Brad owned 400 acres, worth $680,000, net worth over $400,000. He tried to pay Charlie interest. Charlie refused. Just help another young farmer someday. That's the interest I want. Brad did. In 2007, he helped a 26-year-old farmer get started. Sold him a used tractor on terms. No interest. The chain continued. Farmer 2. Sarah Hendricks. Sarah was 31 in 1995. First-generation farmer. No family land. No inheritance. Just determination. She'd saved $28,000 working as an ag teacher. Found a 40-acre farm for sale. $78,000. Needed $50,000 down. Had $28,000. Banks wouldn't lend the $22,000 gap. Too small a loan. Too risky. Sarah was about to give up when a friend mentioned Charlie Morrison. Old guy who helps farmers. Might talk to him. Sarah drove to Charlie's farm nervously. Explained her situation. Expected rejection like all the banks. Charlie asked one question. You serious about farming? It's all I've ever wanted to do. Okay, I'll loan you $22,000. Pay me back when you're able. No interest. Sarah cried. Why? You don't even know me. I know determination when I see it. You'll make it work. Sarah bought the 40 acres, farmed it with used equipment, lived in a tiny farmhouse that needed everything. Worked as a substitute teacher for income while building the farm. She paid Charlie back in 4 years. Then bought another 80 acres. Then, another 120. By 2010, Sarah owned 240 acres worth $960,000. Net worth, $740,000. She'd become one of the most respected farmers in the county, and it started with a $22,000 interest-free loan from a man she'd met once. Farmer 3. James Rodriguez. James was 27 in 1997. Son of migrant workers. Grew up in poverty. Worked 3 jobs through high school and college. Graduated Iowa State with agronomy degree and $42,000 in student debt. James wanted to farm but was trapped by the debt. Couldn't save for down payment while making loan payments. He met Charlie at a farm equipment auction. They talked. Charlie heard James's story. Next week, Charlie called James. I'll pay off your student loans, $42,000. You pay me back whenever you're able. No interest. Use the money you were spending on loan payments to save for a farm. James couldn't believe it. I can't accept that. It's too much. You can, and you will. I've got more money than I'll ever spend. It should help people who'll use it well. You'll use it well. Charlie paid off James's student loans. James had been paying $950 monthly. Now he could save that amount instead. In 4 years, James saved $45,000. Bought a small farm. Paid Charlie back over the next 6 years. By 2015, James owned 380 acres worth $1.6 million. Net worth? $1.1 million. He'd gone from migrant worker's son to millionaire farmer in 18 years. Started with a $42,000 interest-free loan from Charlie Morrison. The other 3 farmers had similar stories. Total money Charlie loaned. $184,000. All paid back. None with interest. Charlie never told anyone. The farmers only revealed it at his funeral. Each stood and shared their story. By the end, the whole church was crying. The preacher summed it up. Charlie Morrison gave away nearly $200,000 to help young farmers. Never asked for repayment terms, never charged interest, never told anyone. He just helped because he could. That's a life well lived. The legacy continues. When Charlie died in 2012 at age 86, his will had specific instructions. Half his estate, $1.05 million, went to establish the Charlie Morrison Beginning Farmer Fund. The fund provides interest-free loans to young farmers who can't get traditional financing. Since 2013, the fund has helped 28 young farmers get started. Same terms Charlie offered. Borrow what you need, pay it back when you can, no interest, help another farmer someday. The other half of Charlie's estate, $1.05 million, went to his church and local agricultural education programs. His tractor collection had already been sold at auction in 2005. The $412,000 proceeds went into the scholarship fund back then. But Charlie's real legacy isn't the money. It's the approach, the philosophy, the proof that you can build wealth doing what you love while helping others. Tom Henderson retired in 2003. But before he retired, he did something important. He started teaching Charlie's lessons to every farmer who'd listen. He created a free seminar, Building Farm Wealth the Charlie Morrison Way. Topics covered: why debt is dangerous and ownership is powerful, how to buy quality used equipment instead of financing new, basic mechanical skills every farmer should have, the power of having a profitable hobby, living below your means, saving aggressively, helping the next generation. Tom gave that seminar 43 times between 1998 and 2003. Over 800 farmers attended. Many changed their approach completely. One attendee, Jeff Patterson, said, "Tom's seminar saved my farm. I was planning to borrow $300,000 to expand. After hearing Charlie's story, I canceled the loan, stayed small, paid off existing debt. 5 years later, I'm debt-free and saving $60,000 a year. If I'd expanded, I'd have lost everything in the 2008 recession." That's the legacy. Not the money, the mindset, the approach, the proof that small and paid for beats large and leveraged. The farmer wanted an old Farmall. The dealer learned a life-changing lesson. The tractor became the teacher. And decades later, farmers across Iowa still tell the story of Charlie Morrison, the millionaire in overalls who restored tractors, helped young farmers, and proved that real wealth is invisible until you look close enough to see it. That's the story. That's the legacy. That's what happens when you stop judging by appearance and start seeing real value. Charlie Morrison taught it. Tom Henderson learned it. Hundreds of farmers benefited from it, and it all started with a worn-out 1962 Farmall 560 that everyone thought was junk, except Charlie. He saw a $25,000 masterpiece waiting to be revealed. And he was right. Sometimes the best investments look like mistakes. Sometimes the wisest people look like fools. Sometimes the richest farmers drive the rustiest trucks. Always look deeper. The truth is never on the surface. Final reflections: the true cost of assumptions. Tom Henderson lived until 2019, died at 74. At his own funeral, his family displayed a photograph from April 1987. Tom standing next to Charlie Morrison in front of that old Farmall 560. Both men smiling. Tom's daughter gave the eulogy. She shared something her father had told her many times. "The day I sold Charlie that tractor was the day I stopped being a salesman and started being a teacher. Charlie showed me that helping farmers succeed matters more than sales volume. That lesson made me a better man." She also shared that Tom had kept a journal from 1987 onward. In it, he'd tracked every farmer he'd helped by recommending used equipment instead of pushing new sales. The total: 418 farmers over 23 years. Of those 418 farmers, 391 were still farming successfully as of 2010. Only 27 had failed. That's a 93% success rate. Compare that to farmers who'd bought new equipment on aggressive financing. Industry averages showed a 58% failure rate over the same period. Tom's approach, learned from Charlie, had saved hundreds of farming operations, kept families on their land, prevented bankruptcies, preserved a way of life. All because an old farmer wanted a worn-out tractor and taught a dealer to see differently. The mathematics of Charlie's approach are worth examining closely because they reveal why it worked so well. Charlie's farming income averaged $35,000 annually over 48 years. Total farming income: $1,680,000. He lived on $12,000 annually. Total living expenses over 48 years: $576,000. Farming savings: $1,104,000. Add tractor restoration profit: $430,000. Total accumulated: $1,534,000. Invested conservatively at an average of 7% over decades. That $1,534,000 grew to approximately $2.1 million by retirement. Add the farm value, $675,000. Total net worth at retirement, $2.775 million. But here's what makes it remarkable. Charlie never earned more than $47,000 in any single year. His highest income year was 2004, when farming generated $38,000 and restoration profit hit $12,000. $47,000 annual income. Built $2.775 million net worth. Over 48 years of discipline and patience. Compare that to Tom's former sales manager, Kevin, who'd quit in 1988 because Tom stopped pushing aggressive sales. Kevin went to work for a competitor, pushed volume sales hard, made good commissions, lived large. By 2008, Kevin had saved approximately $45,000, despite earning over $2 million in commissions over 20 years. When Kevin's employer closed during the 2008 recession, Kevin had no safety net. Worked retail for 6 years before finding another sales job. Retired in 2016 with Social Security and about $92,000 in savings. Tom retired with $960,000. Kevin retired with $92,000. Both worked the same industry. Both started with similar opportunities. Different philosophies. Different outcomes. Charlie's lessons applied beyond farming. They applied to every aspect of life. Live below your means. Save aggressively. Build skills. Help others. Stay humble. Ignore appearances. Focus on fundamentals. Those lessons were Charlie Morrison's gift to everyone who knew him. And through Tom Henderson's seminars, those lessons reached hundreds who never met Charlie, but benefited from his wisdom. The tractor that started it all. That 1962 Farmall 560 that Tom sold to Charlie in April 1987, had quite a journey. Charlie restored it perfectly over 6 months. Won Best of Show at Iowa State Fair in 1988. Displayed it at farm shows for 15 years. Turned down multiple offers exceeding $25,000. Finally sold it at his collection auction in 2005 for $32,000. The buyer was a collector from Minnesota who'd admired it for years. In 2018, that same tractor appeared at an auction in Wisconsin. The Minnesota collector had died. Estate sale. The Farmall sold for $48,000. A tractor Tom Henderson sold for $6,000 in 1987 sold for $48,000 in 2018. 31 years later. 8 times the original price. Charlie had known. He'd seen the value. Everyone else saw junk. Charlie saw opportunity. And that difference in vision, seeing value where others see waste, was Charlie's superpower. Applied to tractors. Applied to farming. Applied to life. Tom Henderson learned to see that way too. Stopped judging by surface appearance. Started looking deeper. Found value in farmers others dismissed. Found opportunity in situations others ignored. That shift in perspective changed everything. The final lesson. In 2017, Tom was invited to speak at the Iowa Farm Bureau annual meeting. Topic: 40 years in farm equipment sales, what I learned. Tom was 82. Still sharp. Still passionate about farming. He told the story of Charlie Morrison and the old Farmall. Told it exactly as it happened. No exaggeration. No embellishment. The audience was silent. 800 farmers listening to an old dealer talk about an old farmer and an old tractor. Tom ended with this. Charlie Morrison died 5 years ago. But his lessons live on. And here's the most important lesson. You don't need to be big to be successful. You don't need new equipment to be profitable. You don't need to impress anyone to build wealth. You just need discipline, patience, and the courage to ignore what everyone else is doing. Charlie farmed 280 acres his entire life, never expanded, drove a rusty truck until he died, wore the same overalls for years. Everyone thought he was poor. He died with nearly $3 million and changed hundreds of lives. That's success, real success, the kind that matters. Standing ovation, 3 minutes of applause. Farmers wiping tears, because many of them had known Charlie, or knew farmers like him. Men who looked poor but were rich. Men who helped quietly. Men who built legacies through discipline and generosity. Tom's speech was recorded, posted online, got over 280,000 views. Comments ranged from, "This is my grandfather's story," to "We need more farmers like Charlie," to "The world lost something when we stopped valuing this kind of person." That speech became Tom's final public appearance. He died 2 years later. But the message lives on. The farmer wanted an old Farmall. The dealer laughed, then learned, then taught, then changed hundreds of lives. All from one transaction in April 1987. $6,000 in cash for a worn-out tractor. A dealer's assumption. A farmer's wisdom. A life-changing lesson. Charlie Morrison. Tom Henderson. One old Farmall 560. And a truth that echoes through generations. Never judge by appearance. Always look deeper. The richest people often look the poorest. The wisest people often seem the simplest. And sometimes an old tractor is exactly what someone needs to teach a lesson worth millions. That's the story. Complete. True. And as relevant today as it was in 1987. The farmer wanted an old Farmall. The dealer laughed but got shocked. And the world became a little better because of what happened next. Never forget. Assumptions are expensive. Wisdom is priceless. And sometimes the best investment looks like the worst idea until you understand what you're actually buying. Charlie Morrison understood. Tom Henderson learned. May we all be wise enough to see past appearances to the truth underneath. The old Farmall wasn't junk. It was a teacher. And the lesson it taught is worth more than any shiny new tractor ever sold.